Audio check. Hope everything's coming out all right. Welcome, man. Yeah, the latest footage I could find was probably 2019. Trying to see the best way to kind of read chat. Probably be it right here. Sweet. I'm actually using my Bluetooth headset. Trying to still dial in the Rode mic. The setup's changed a little bit since then. Before it used to be all Logitech cameras. Now there's a GoPro Hero 10 on the primary cam and this Logitech for now until I get another capture card for the Sony a6000. Today we're going to be building a workstation with the 12900K. Specs are right up there on the screen, so let's get started. I think this time around I'm going to start with the all-in-one cooler. Get the fans put on that. Sometimes it's just easier to leave it on the floor for certain things. Forgot how much setup is involved with the streaming, and then it reminded me, oh yeah, that's kind of why I stopped doing it. Got super busy. 2020 was to date has been my best year ever for sales. And then now that my kids are in school, not yet technically, they're still in summer, but now that they'll be going into second grade, it'll be a lot easier to stream during the day rather than midnight Pacific Standard Time like I've used to do. Did a lot of audio testing, but actually nothing with unboxing stuff, so hopefully it's not too crazy. Get ourselves into a little rhythm here. See how fast I could actually build a computer when I'm not answering emails at the same time. Yeah, and mine's are twin. I have twins too, man. They're 7, so they're at the age where they're taking interest. Like the other, well, not the other day. Actually, it's probably been like 2-3 months. One of my boys walked in when I was lubing some Gateron switches, and I actually showed him how to take switches apart and lube them, and he actually enjoyed doing that. So he's been asking when we could do that again, and hopefully soon. Okay. So this is LGA 1700, so we won't really be using much of this stuff. I have the LGA 1700 bracket since it's still not included in these fractal S36s. One thing that I've really, especially this year, but I mean every year, I'm always looking for ways to improve my systems, and the one thing that I actually began to appreciate about the Be Quiet cooler that I'm testing right now is the nickel-plated cold plate rather than the copper one. There's this nickel-plated, I kind of wrote it off at first because it has the pump on the hoses, but after buying one to test, that thing is so quiet. And not that I've had Asetek failures, but man, just this past month I had two Asetek, or well, Fractal S36s have faulty PWM auto switches. So kind of got me on the ball to look at all the all-in-one coolers again. At least in America, we have that Asetek patent, so we don't get too much innovation. I think Europe and the rest of the world, they get to have a lot more options. Oh shoot. I just noticed we have so Noctua updated their stickers on the Redux. These would be the new ones, and we have an old one right here. I'm gonna see if I have another matching one. Just have all three with the new style. Yep, here we go. Little stuff like that annoy me. I've had a lot of quality control issues since the virus, the COVID virus. I think we're allowed to say that now. My personal thoughts are that I think factories are strained and quality control has loosened because they can't afford to have losses. Because man, whether it's RAM or paint finish issues on cases, it's just been weird. Hey Aaron, what's up, man? You know, yeah, Wild Dog, that's something I found quite interesting when. So one thing I've noticed, the i9 12900Ks in particular are quite toasty. Actually, guys, let me know if this is annoying. Is that annoying on the mic? If not, I'll mute. Oh yeah, you're a different time zone over there. Thanks, man. If you gotta jump off, no worries. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if the drill was gonna come out offensive. And Google is trying to get involved here. Oh, 2 a.m. over there, man. Dang. Yeah, normally when I'd stream at midnight, that'd probably put it closer to your mornings then. But the thing I was noticing with the i9 12900Ks, they, you know, well, 12th gen in general, it does flex in the middle. That happens. But the test bench i9 I have, I think is a little bit on the golden side because that thing runs nice and cool. But I switched the test bench from the U14S Noctua to the Be Quiet all-in-one cooler. I'm sorry. I switched it from the U14S with the stock ILM from Intel to the contact frame from. Oh, this one's empty. I have another one of these around here. From Thermalright, and temperatures were within 2 degrees Celsius on my sample, and my testing before and after was with the U14S, and I think the Noctua base plate and cold plate might be stiff enough compared to the all-in-one cooler softer copper that the temperature didn't fluctuate as much. So now I gotta redo the test with an all-in-one cooler to see if there's a greater variation, because no doubt I think the cold plate on these is going to be softer than what the Noctua versions are. Make sure chat thing is chat working. Okay, we're good. Trying to see how I could make it easier to read chat. I always do these in a particular order. Farthest fan goes first on the left, and then center, and then furthest over there would be the top fan. Funny, not streaming for so long, it's like I gotta get used to talking and building at the same time almost. Kinda funny. I gotta remember to work. Alright, so this would be ready to rock and roll, so I'm gonna put it aside and now we'll work on the motherboard. At this point, I'll be using my grounding strap for sure. This aside. Gonna start keeping the accessories in one area. Get a box going. This is actually my first time working or doing a build with the setup this way. So everything is pretty close to how I've always had it, but I've had to rotate the table around and get things dialed in so I could get good camera angles. So if I look a little off or something, that's probably why. The Thermalright contact frame, I don't know if they copied Der Bauer or not. Apparently the Thermalright one came out first, but who knows how that happened at the factory level. But anyways, the Der Bauer one in your side of the world is probably only like 10 bucks, and It was super easy to install. It's worth a shot. I had some photos posted of me of the lap CPU I did, and it was definitely bowed in the would it be concave in the center? The only thing that's funny about the Thermalright one is there's literally like no directions. It's basically remove the Intel ILM and replace it with ours. There's no torque specs, there's nothing. So I actually got the specs off of Der Bauer, off of his instructions. Yeah, of course, the first time this has happened. So there's like a clear protective film on this, and this one just, the tape that removes it came off instead of peeling it off. I don't even know why Asus puts that protective film there. It's just the rear IO, something no one even sees. Alright, camera, is that good? There we go. That's one of my pet peeves with video cards in particular. There's so much protective film on video cards. And they're so overpacked, I don't know why they go so crazy with it. Oh yeah, the washer mod was another successful approach. Alright. One thing I do not do is I do not use these M.2 heatsinks. So we're gonna have one drive in here. We happen to get the model, the model one with the actual heatsink on there, but no matter what, these things will bend your NVMe drive, and I can't see that being good for longevity. So just keep that in mind. And here's the other thing, because we're using a 2 terabyte drive, it's double-sided. Asus switched to this latching mechanism rather than a screw, so we'll have to remove that and replace it. It's fine if you just have a 1 terabyte drive, but the 2 terabyte drives will hit it. I've let Asus know about it. I don't know if there's going to be a revision or not. They told me, no, it doesn't hit. And I showed them a picture, no, it does. So I think when they tested, they only used a 1 terabyte. When they tested with all the NVMe with heatsink. So thankfully, I have a ton of spare standoffs from the years. So we should be okay. Make sure this is the right one for the height I need. I think I need a low profile one. We'll find out. Yeah, Gamers Nexus, I think they dropped like 7 degrees or something. So yeah, this would be the correct height. Perfect. So now I'll just remove this and tighten it down. The odd thing though, man, is the 12900K on my test bench in a way, unfortunately, is probably a really good sample. If I stress test that thing with the U14S, it'll be in the 90s. You know, stock, no voltage, no undervolting or anything. But I've had, oh, I forgot. The other thing we're gonna do is we gotta take off this rubber. I don't know if it's gonna come through. We gotta take off this foam pad that's hitting too. But I've had 12900K in the Meshify 2 compact with the 360mm all-in-one. I've had that thing even overheat, like hit 100C, where it's not like overheating, but it'll drop it down a little bit. Unfortunately, this one didn't come off perfectly clean. There's still a little bit of adhesive, but I don't want to risk damaging any of the traces in the motherboard just to get some tape off. Alright, so we're good there. We'll do the CPU next. And I just think it's totally crazy the amount of force you gotta put on these. I'm surprised Intel didn't do a different kind of mechanism. So even though it's new, I always like to check for dust. Gently make sure it's seated. So with these, I just try to push the ILM furthest that way, like gently push it, and now push down when I clamp, just to try to get it as centered as possible. Do the all-in-one cooler bracket, and this would be the this one's technically from Thermaltake, but their kit is identical to the Asetek one. The only difference is they don't give you the thumb screws. You just get standoffs, but you already get thumb screws from your all-in-one cooler, so save a couple dollars, why not? Yeah, X99, X299, that those with the clamps on both sides, the two levers, I'm pretty sure that's what they probably should have done. This, I mean, it's technically fine. Really, it's the i9s in particular that have the higher temp issues that become more challenging to control. The i7s, depending on the cooler you're using, yeah, but I mean with the 240, 360mm, the i7 should be okay. It's the i9 that you kind of feel like you gotta do things with it. Like this one, for example, I may switch it out to a contact frame if temps aren't okay. I'd like to do a little more testing before I start doing it to client builds, but the goal is going to be eventually to just have all the i9s on the contact frame if it's worth it. What I'm just trying to do is make sure I can repeat good results reliably. So I actually purchased a torque screwdriver to help do that. That way, you know, just trying to remove any variation that's possible. Get this all put back inside. The funny thing with X99 though was I feel like that memory controller at first kind of sucked, and it was a pain to you had to actually manually do some voltages, otherwise it would overvolt things. I'm gonna mute because I'm just gonna blow this off with air one more time before I do RAM. Alright. And one of the more recent changes is that I used to use nothing but G-Skill. Like, I would go out of my way to get G-Skill. But something changed over there that, man, these last 2 years I've had so many issues with G-Skill. I even questioned myself, like, that's why I got this anti-static mat, thinking like, yeah, I've been in business 7 years now, and I'm an enthusiast even longer. I've never had issues with not using an anti-static mat. But I'm like, man, is it me? Is it the desert? I usually have a humidifier running, an air filter running in here. Switched to the anti-static mat, and I'm still had a few issues with G-Skill. So I'm not even using G-Skill anymore. Now it's the opposite. Instead of going out of my way to use them, I'm going out of my way to not use them. Which is a shame because they were a good value and really served me well for many years. Prior to G-Skill, I was really into, which was then HyperX, their Fury RAM, which is now just Kingston, but I'm gonna try to get Kingston. They've been pretty solid the times I've tested it. I haven't had any issues. But right now it's really, you know, this build is Corsair. Just good old Corsair. So basically right now it's just almost anything but Kingston. Or I mean anything but G-Skill. So we'll set the motherboard down. We'll get the case out now. And this stream is going to be me flaming a bunch of companies that have had quality control issues, I worry. Therapeutic getting it off my chest. I'm going to remove the case from the packing or the shipping box off camera. And we'll hope that there's nothing wrong with it. Make sure everything looks good. Just some of the, oh, actually, this is weird. I'm gonna have to see if I could clean that off. I don't know if it's gonna show up on camera. Almost looks like there's fingerprints, like something in the paint right here. See if we could clean that up. Anything you don't really see without light directly on it, but shouldn't be there. Okay, yeah, it's gone now. I mean, I'm almost excessively thorough because I've had weird issues with paint, chipped glass, weird stuff. So I think we're good. I had a case that had scratches in here once. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Good thing is though, every time I bring it up, Fractal's always interested, and I feel they do what is right. So, you know, yeah, it's a factory issue. Probably looking good. The one thing I don't like about Fractal, and it's not anything that an enthusiast would worry about, but for me, there's going to be a lot of work I need to do to put this in a state to assemble it. And when I'm trying to do multiple systems a day or a week, it becomes kind of a pain to have to take off so much to get to start even like building it. So at this point, since I don't use the fans still need to come out, drive cage needs to come out, these trim pieces need to come out. This is just an issue for me as a system integrator, not your average, you know, enthusiast. These would be actually selling points if you're an enthusiast because the case is so versatile. So it's just me thinking out loud, I guess. Camera angle, maybe move this camera back a little bit. There we go. And that's a really good, that's really good for a D15 especially. No used parts. I think it's just the factory is slipping. I actually have And this was from Newegg. I have an Asus motherboard that arrived with the tape cut open. So I'm in the process of returning this from Newegg, but there's clearly a tape seal. It arrived open. There's like some fingerprints on the anti-static bag, and considering it's a motherboard especially, it doesn't look like it was actually used. It looked like maybe somebody opened it to look at it, but you know, I'm not gonna have any of that for one of my client builds. Yes, I'm gonna cut this cable. I hate DC fans. Just much harder to control them. I've tried to find other cases to use besides these fractal cases because of the amount of stuff I have to take out of them and throw away, and I mean it's a bunch of waste in cardboard and styrofoam I deal with. On a busy week, I just look at the mountain of cardboard just from the cases alone, and I'm just like, geez. This has an accessories box the darn near size of the case, and there's a lot of, just from this modularity, there's so much stuff you gotta deal with. But man, unfortunately, I mean, Corsair, they're, NZXT, they're very gamer oriented, which are their segments, but Fractal's just, they're on point with everything else, really. Alright, everything looks good. Oh, well, you'll see what I have to complain about next with this case, I guess. Stay tuned. And it's stuff I fix, during the build, but I have to shim one of the standoffs in order to make sure the motherboard is perfectly flat. It's probably something I don't need to do, but it's something I'm aware of and I want to do. Kind of like blueprinting an engine, a race engine. You want everything to be within a certain spec. I would just want these systems to be as perfect as possible. So I need to throw that in there. We're gonna use the mesh vented top because we're gonna have one exhaust fan or top, especially with the 3080. See, this is just what I mean. I mean, more trash. Like, dang, just make them all, I don't know, whatever. I need to stop complaining. I'm just putting the panels back inside the case, the shipping box from Fractal, so things don't get damaged while we're building. I apologize, that is off camera. Alright. So let's do the standoffs. The center one, I switched that from a stud to a standoff that can accept a screw, just because of the weight of video cards. I want, the PCI Express slot is going to be right around here, so this having a screw-in stud rather than just a gravity stud, it'll prevent the motherboard from bowing during shipping. So remove that. Fractal gives you the extra one, so no issues there. Toss out the zip ties. Just going through the hardware right now. There's the extra stud. Don't use their motherboard screws because the Phillips head on it is so tiny that I just don't like the diameter. All right, let's find my socket. So I'm just checking the threaded length because one of them is longer than the other. So the longer one I'm going to use for the side I need to shim. Now I'm going to, it's about a 1mm thick shim, like the kind of washer that you get with your all-in-one cooler for the fan mounts. So that'll go right at this top right one. I'm assuming the beep I hear is from the music. Okay, I don't see any notifications on the system. I don't know if that'll show up, but it's just right here, this corner generally needs to be shimmed so that the motherboard will sit flat. Perfect. So I'm just pushing down to see if everything's nice and flat and resting on the studs. Oh man, yeah, the boxes within boxes is they used to have like the Define and then like the S2 and different products, and I understand they're trying to condense their SKUs because it makes it easier to just manufacture and store less, part numbers. But as they've done that, it's just kind of made it a little more for me to deal with over here on my end. For anyone wondering, there is a clutch on this, so I have it set to number 2, and you know, with tools, you gotta know how to use them. So if you just ram it in full speed and just lay on the clutch, you'll get a tighter result than if you just roll into it like I am and letting the slipper clutch do its thing. So don't worry, I'm not going crazy with them. Then I'll usually just check a couple to make sure the torque felt on point. That thing's probably 2-3 years old. Still doing a good job. Okay, now we can just start some basic cable management. At this point, I like to do the cables that are in the chassis. So, alright, cool. And I basically always do this the same exact order. I'll do the audio cable first and untangle it. Make sure everything's nice and untangled. And I'll route it through the top. Straighten out that bend that was in the line. Down the side, and then just going through the opening on the other side. Now just tuck that in place. The next will be the USB Type-C header, that 20 pin or whatever it is. Same thing. I'll loop it through. I'll connect that in a little bit. And then I've done a lot of Meshify 2 compacts lately that, and those don't have the 2.0 header, but these will go in together. I'll just feed like the reset switch and power switch first. Oh yeah, there's one more thing we need to do. So because the USB 3.0 header does a 90-degree turn off the motherboard, I basically have to cut the grommet to make sure there's no tension on the connector as it slides in. So I'm gonna do that right now. Don't want any unneeded forces on the cable. And generally don't cut towards yourself, but that's basically just this lip we removed from this corner. And once that connector is plugged in, I'll show you guys so you can see what I meant. This is why I leave the all-in-one cooler out, so I could reach through the front where the fans would have been. Just easier to get this stuff out of the way without the all-in-one cooler. I'm gonna try to get this in nice and neat. And try to pre-bend it. And then it'll slide right in. Don't know why Asus put a 90 there, but you could see where the cable comes out. If the rubber grommet was there, that would have given it even more pressure. But it's pretty much flush now. I'm gonna zip tie the 3.0 header first and then connect everything out and zip tie from there on out. Yeah, man, no worries for the tips. Just trying to show people how I build and pass on the knowledge. Alright. We're doing the audio cable. And we'll do the USB. So this motherboard doesn't have Wi-Fi Bluetooth, so if a client needs that, it's kind of cool because there's two USB 2.0 headers, which isn't extremely common anymore. This case would use one of them for the front 2.0, and then if the Bluetooth was used off an add-in card, that would have, for whatever reason, it's always USB, even though it's plugged into PCIe for Wi-Fi. Probably a protocol limitation, but that would go right there. Looking good. So now I'll show you why I waited on the USB 3.1, the Type-C header. I'll plug that in. Make sure it's going in the right way. And then I'll kind of fold it over so I could zip tie it. Such a tight bend that you kind of, as you push the zip tie through, while you're pulling on it, you gotta also push the other end. Not stress the zip tie too much. This is something I really just started doing about a year ago. Feel like it makes the header look a lot cleaner and the cable look a lot cleaner. Otherwise, before, what I would do is I'd come in through here, loop it down, and plug in through like a loop, which was cool, you know, it wasn't nothing wrong with that, but this looks so much tighter and cleaner. Kind of fun, like finding new ways to do something that, you know, darn near standardized with fractal design cases, and it kind of becomes the same thing every day. So when you find a new way to do something, it's kind of refreshing. So now we'll just tidy up the 2.0 and the front I/O cables. Let's see. I usually go for a tighter fit here, and then because I could always hide excess up here. So the small power switches, I'll tighten that up. Get those nice and bundled. And then the 2.0, the same thing. I'll have those kind of be all clumped up together. Definitely won't win a speed building contest, but do take pride in my cable management. Try to make everything look as symmetrical as possible. Zip ties pointing the same directions when possible. I'll leave these uncut so you can kind of see how much it adds up. So I'll start feeding them through the side here. Yeah, cool, it shows up on camera. So Wild used to watch me stream before. Back then I was using 3 Logitech cams, and I think it became a little too much, and now I kind of like this layout with the 2 cameras. So it's interesting seeing the limitations of the GoPro Hero 10. You know, compared to like the Sony a6000 I have, the Sony has a bigger sensor, so you'll get better low light performance. Just megapixels isn't everything. Hey man, well, take it easy, man. Thanks for stopping by. I'll just slowly start tightening everything down. This side won't get used anymore. All the other cables are going to be routed through these, so we'll be good. And then the 3.1 Type-C. It's just like a perfect lip right here to hold it. No zip ties needed on that side. Alright. Now for the extra cables that are up here. I'll use black so it doesn't pop and stand out too much. Years ago I switched to colored zip ties so that if anyone else besides myself went to service or upgrade the system, they could see where the zip ties were easily. That way, you know, they're not trying to yank on something. Because something I'll do often on some cases, I'll loop around extra cables right around here and zip tie it to the vents. I just wouldn't want someone yanking on something, not realizing it was zip tied. So now it is time for the all-in-one cooler. Actually, we'll do the rear fan. Do the rear fan because that fan is already out. I'll have to untether myself. Rear fan, then we will do the all-in-one cooler. So you'll see I loop this around a certain way too. before I crank down on these, I'll just make sure it'll reach the connector. Give it a little more length. And I'll probably should put my anti-static strap back on. Honestly, I think it's really not necessary as long as you're touching the chassis first and stuff like that. But since I am in the desert, I'm just doing my due diligence. Prior to living in Las Vegas, I was in Huntington Beach and humidity was often over 60%, so you couldn't possibly give someone a static shock if you tried out there. Out here, not so much. Right now, it rained outside overnight about 3 days in a row and have an abnormally high 40% humidity. Usually it's in the 20s. And Aaron, I relate to that. The boys are at their grandmother's today. My wife is in Arizona doing a girls' trip. So I got some peace and quiet. But once I go pick them up, have dinner at grandma's, after they're asleep, I'll be getting back to work too. The goal is to get this stress testing so when I go to grandma's, the computer is working while I'm not. Oh, Aaron, I wanted to ask you, what music do you use? Because I remember hearing some of your music and thinking it was pretty cool. This is, I guess, the cool kids probably call it LoFi, low fidelity music with like hip hop beats, which is pretty cool. Kind of goes with, I guess, me, I guess. Oh man. Yeah, I know the feeling. I was hoping to get more work done yesterday than I did, but I did a lot of prep for the stream, like reorganizing the office, getting cameras set up, mic set up, running a Best Buy, getting this and that. So the next thing I do, there's nothing wrong with using the thermal paste that's on there. Years ago, man, I forgot who benched it. It might have been Tech Syndicate. Years ago, somebody benchmarked it, and actually, because of the perfect application, this was really hard to beat. But I like to use a few different thermal compounds. I kind of switch. I'm always looking for the best. So right now I'm using Kingpin's KPX. I've used the Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut. I've used NTH2 from Noctua. They all perform really close alike. So, I mean, I would say those are all within like 1 degree Celsius of each other. So what I then look for is which is therefore which is like the easiest to apply. And kind of digging the KPX. It's the latest one for me to try. The Noctua NTH2 is really weird. Like when you do your dot and you go pull the syringe away, it'll leave like a super long stringy thing, like a melted pizza. When you order fresh pizza and it's all hot and melty, you pull that pizza away and there's like cheese. That's what the NTH2 does. So that's kind of frustrating when you're trying to be efficient. And I don't remember if the Cryonaut did that, but it's kind of pricey, and the KPX seems to be as good and a little easier to get sometimes. So I love applying it. It seems pretty easy to do. That's what we'll be using today. Okay, I'm gonna mute for a sec. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, finding Nirvana was like my go-to because it was instrumental, no lyrics. But I figured rebooting the channel will start with some new music that I haven't used before. Alright. So I just used this so that the chassis is not sitting perfectly flat since there's zip ties and everything. Gives it some like, you know, air gap. So get everything ready. Let's get the KPX. So I use actual syringes on them. What I do, pull it out, and sometimes there's like a dry piece with all of the thermal paste, not just KPX. So I'll purge it a little, make sure I'm getting fresh thermal compound. And with this CPU, we just go straight down the middle. Now I'll just apply some suction and twist the syringe as I come up. So I'm doing this motion. In case there is any of that string cheese, kind of melted cheese coming off of it, it'll just wrap around the syringe. It's literally a, where's the camera? It's literally a real syringe for industrial use, not a medical one. You just vacuum up some of the dry stuff. Sweet. Are they officially like royalty free, or since you don't really, I mean, I don't really care about the monetization. I'm just curious. In my credits, I have the music group. It's free to use, so it's pretty cool. It's royalty free music, I guess, as long as you like subscribe to their service, and which is free, and give them credit, it's okay to use. I guess I could show you guys. Ooh, don't want to do that. I'm gonna try to show you guys the thermal paste, which isn't something I normally do when I'm not streaming. So let me get this tidied up, and then we'll stand up the case so you can kind of see how I did it. See, where's it gonna come out first? So I don't know if the GoPro will catch that, but it's just kind of a little zigzag line down the middle, and then with the excess I go straight across, and that should be enough, more than enough. With 12th gen, I apply a little more than usual just because with the pressure from the ILM, the clamping mechanism, creating an air gap down the center of the CPU, I want to make sure there's enough there to take out that air gap. And really the excess thermal paste will just get pushed out. I mean, in the earlier days, everyone used to, I guess, make a really big deal of your application, and your application method does kind of matter, but what's worse is not having enough. Having too little is definitely generally a little worse than too much. And you know, it's not game over if you don't have enough. Just means you might be 5 degrees hotter than someone else. We're doing a crisscross method, trying to make sure that Tim spreads evenly. Tim is thermal interface material, the thermal compound. Funny, been getting into F1 racing. I feel like a dork because it's totally over that Netflix docu-series or whatever. I've always respected F1 drivers. I just never really cared for it. I was always into more like younger years. I was more into like the touring cars, and then as I got my license, it was about drag racing for me personally. But man, I'm totally into F1, and the funny thing is there's so many acronyms. So I figured I'll let you know what Tim means. Same thing when I was at Mercedes-Benz, all acronyms. Let's see, I'm not sure how well that's coming out on the camera, but so you guys could see, I'll kind of get in a weird position to show you guys. Normally I'll do this with the case flat, just zip tying around the all-in-one cooler, the wires. I don't crank it down and make it very tight, just enough so it stays in place. One thing I always do with my zip ties, I'm pre-bending them, so I don't know if that'll come out, but let's see. There we go. See how it's kind of bent? I just pre-bend them so it's easier to feed them through where I need them to go. Ironically, this time I did it backwards, but still okay. And that helps the zip tie go where you want it to go. So same thing, just snug when you're doing this part. You definitely don't want to over tighten zip ties on a normal situation either. It's funny because there's actual zip tie torque wrenches out there too. So this part looks all good. Switch it to from auto to PWM by turning this dial. This is the dial that actually had two back-to-back ones broken, where it was just stuck on auto, and auto is too biased for silence. So CPU runs hot if it's on auto, especially with like an i9. Oh, dude, what's up, man? This is your machine. So this is the first machine I've live built since probably 2019. So I was hoping to actually I was hoping to have yours shipped by Friday, which obviously didn't happen. But at least, you know, you get to see it built. So I'll get these started by hand, and then we'll crank them down with the driver. That's one thing that, you know, in my technician days and everything, there's always a pet peeve. People that ram things in without starting by hand, because you cross-thread things more easily that way. So now another silly thing I do, I try to make everything nice and even. So I'll go all the way to the top when it touches the chassis, and then I back off a little bit. And then because there's still left to right play, I'll kind of crank it down this way. So top, back off, and then holding it in that direction, I'll just zip it down. And then after we get this third one, I'll let go of it. Just go around. I'll just check maybe like 3 of these, make sure things are good. Yep. Alright, another thing I'll do, for the life of me, I don't know why Fractal Design hasn't done this, but these are off the chassis, but I use zip ties, so what I use these for instead is just to tidy up the hoses. I don't crank down on them too tight, just enough to keep the hoses together, but then they'll hold the shape I want it to be at. Like, I wouldn't want to do this with a zip tie, but these Velcro ones are perfect. It's branded with Fractal, so obviously they have some sort of a part number already. They should just include these with the all-in-one cooler. So let's see. So mini plays, hello. What I would be curious about is if you're having RAM issues. If you're having issues installing Windows, a lot of that stuff is occurring in the RAM. So maybe try doing it with 1 stick of RAM. Even better, memtest86. So you go to memtest86. There's a tool to walk you through it. You just need a USB stick and it'll make a RAM testing tool that loads up without Windows. Yeah, well, trust me, it's worth a shot. Use memtest86. So, and then if you start getting errors, you'll know it's at least your RAM, motherboard, or CPU. Usually it's just RAM though. If you're having errors in memtest86, the reason why it could be the motherboard is that, you know, the connectors here, you may want to, if you get errors, remove and reseat your RAM. Make sure it's nice and flat. You know, maybe default the BIOS, and then retest. After reseating your RAM, if you get errors in memtest86, reseat it, retest. If you still have errors, like this system, we have 2 sticks of RAM. What I would do is I'd remove one of them, retest. If it fails, then I'd swap them out, retest. If that fails, then I would move on to another RAM slot. And if that fails, you probably have a motherboard or CPU issue. It's so rare to have a bad CPU, it does happen, but the memory controller is built into the CPU on all of these new, you know, architectures, so that's why it could be your CPU. You can reseat the CPU, but if you reseat the CPU and it's still happening, I would start with the motherboard. I've had bad NVMe drives. Literally, I recorded a laptop repair I did before I went live, just to make sure my settings were okay. But a brand new laptop and it looks like the NVMe drive is bad. So that's possible, but it's probably RAM. That's where I would start. That, or you have a corrupt Windows ISO or installer. So maybe re-download your Windows from Microsoft. Try again. So let's see. At this point, all-in-one cooler is in. So instead of doing the video card, I'm now gonna do the 24 pin and the 2 EPS wires. Zip tie that all up, and then we'll drop in the video card, route the cables to the video card, and then slide in the power supply, and this will get going with its stress testing. Oh, and there's still one more fan to put up here. So I'm gonna go off camera to get the power supply. Yeah, but mini plays, memtest 86. Let me put it in here. That would be the tool I recommend. It's free for personal use, and that will at least help you eliminate your RAM from the equation. Yeah, got it. Sweet. So, stuff we don't need, stuff we do need. These are SATA Molex. Don't need those yet. So right now I'm just gonna get the 24 pin and the EPS ones, as well as set aside the video card ones. Those will all be in this bag right here. Just be sure to download the media creation tool from Microsoft, because you could download the ISO and then use Rufus to create a bootable, but the media creation tool does everything for you. All you need is your USB drive. It'll format it to the correct format, which I think technically is FAT32. That's a PCIe one. So this power supply comes with a number of video card cables, and this video card only uses 2 8-pins. So I'm looking for the cable that is single 8-pin. So here we go. This is what I mean by the single 8-pin. This side goes to the video card, single 8-pin connector, rather than this one that has 2 8-pin. So some people will just do this and plug this single one into both 8-pin, and you know, technically it's not a big deal, but I prefer, and usually the instructions in the power supply will tell you to do this, but you want to use two separate harnesses, each with their own 8-pin. And then if you have a video card with 3, that would be the only time I would maybe consider doing this. One 8-pin and the one with the 2 8-pins, but I would honestly, when I build systems, I would use all 3 of them. So just me being I guess trying to be extra careful. So the PCIe ones we'll set aside. We're using the 24 pin, and I'll straighten out the cables before I just throw it into the system. Try to make them nice and straight. Then this one I'll kind of pre-bend, the 24 pin. Let's get plugged back into our anti-static mat. Alright, so comes right in this way, plugs right in. It's just easier when the video card's not in the way, because if my wrist were to move into it, I don't want to bump into it. And then now we'll feed through the CPU ones, the EPS is what they're called. Pull them through, and then I'll give it a 180-degree bend, and then pull, get it back in. So this next one, this motherboard has an 8-pin and a 4-pin. So basically this is still the right one, it's just split. So I'll kind of do this. So one of them will be kind of off like in a 90-degree turn, and then the other one will do the 180. And that way it kind of holds it in place so it doesn't get all in the way and tangled. But still, just pull it through first, and then I'll do that bend I mentioned, and then plug it in. And always make sure the clips have clipped in. So now what you'll see, okay, maybe, there we go. You can see it's kind of coming out this end. Rather than just being loose around here, it's being held in place by the cables. Alright, well, I gotta see a picture, Aaron. Make sure it still looks good. I'm sure it does. I'm just curious. I hate doing RGB builds. You're like one of the only people I'll do them for. The last RGB build I did actually was quite recent, but that was for a family member. I'm so OCD about my cables. Actually, it's like one of my buddy's wives has some sort of a minor in psychology or something, and she corrected me that it's technically not OCD. It's very commonly misused. It's actually something else. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. That's what I am then. I'm so particular. OCD is actually, I guess, something different or worse. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm trying to show you guys what I'm doing. So I'm just routing them through. For whatever reason, the Seven Dwarfs song kind of got in my head. The Hi-Ho one. I haven't seen that movie since I was probably a kid. I've only been to Disneyland many times though, so I haven't been back to Disney since COVID, which is a bummer because my boys miss it. I'll have to do that soon. Everything's still kind of loose. I haven't cranked down on anything just yet. I want to make sure everything is in the right position first. So now we'll crank it down. I was trying to straighten it out a little bit, and then now we'll crank it down. tighten these up, get them bunched up together. And then we'll crank it down. That must be next level then. Alright, so we'll just tuck the rest into the PSU compartment. We'll deal with those later. I'll cut these up later. I just, for camera's sake, it's kind of, I guess, nice to see how many zip ties I actually use. Something like your system, Aaron, I want to say I counted them and it was something ridiculously high, like 60 or 50 or something zip ties. So I'll just get this top one in place for the 24 pin, and we'll tuck this in. Wait for the video card to go in. Looks good. Now we'll get the video card in. Let me untether. Alright, so what I'm doing now is gonna get the video card out, and I'll have to say I'm really happy with this exact video card line. It's kind of like a no BS design where it has good cooling, no RGB, and the video card itself is very stiff. One of the things that caught me by surprise on the Asus TUF, which I love using Asus and EVGA usually, the Asus TUF has some sag that comes from the IO bracket, so it doesn't look good. Asus, they make great cards, but not something I want to have to deal with. This card, man, it comes with the bracket, but I don't even need it because this thing is just like on point. And the bracket itself is actually quite flimsy. I tried to use it once and it wasn't, it's a cheap included bracket. So the time I did try to use it, I took it out and decided, okay, we won't be doing that again. So don't feel like you're missing out. It's a mediocre bracket at best, but the best part is that the video card doesn't even need it. So for my sake, I love that there's no like protective, stuff to peel off. So but I mean, this thing is so robust. Like, you got this nice thick back plate that they put a 90-degree bend on to make it thick. Then there's another support bracket down here. Should probably change, when I used to stream, I think I was using blue gloves, so my fingers would be easier to tell apart from the black hardware, but it's a solid card. I really like this one. Man, I hate the MSI Dragon, but whatever. That's all personal preference. Thankfully, it's a good performing card. So the dust caps I don't leave in the video card, but instead I put them into the motherboard so people don't accidentally use the motherboard's video out, because this CPU does have video out, unlike the AMD video cards. And I would hate for someone to be missing out on performance. Alright. So we're gonna use our foam and we're gonna lay it down on that foam so there's somewhere for all these zip ties to go. Then we will drop it in place. Oh, you know, here's another thing. I don't think this will, yeah, it'll show through the camera. I'm putting my hand in through the rear opening to support the video card. So I'm dropping it in, and then I'm also gonna grab it from this end to help kind of guide it nice and easy. We'll just drop it in slow and steady. All right. Make sure the clip's in place and we're good to go. Another silly thing, I guess it's just marketing at this point, but thumb screws are kind of useless because no matter what, you need you need a Phillips. Well, technically this is Japanese standard tips. Was it JIC or something? Anyways, you still need a Phillips or something. So maybe in like the 90s it was functional, but definitely just you can't just, you need tools to build a computer. You already need tools for the motherboard, so I don't know why they go out of their way with thumb screws for everything else. And I mean, personally, in an office environment, I want to make sure there's screws to hold the side panel in place. Unfortunately, a lot of these newer case designs don't accommodate that. Okay, I'm gonna make sure. So at this point, just gonna make sure the video card's nice and flat. I'm looking for the I/O in the back, make sure it's not covered by anything. And that's kind of why you don't need the bracket. I mean, this thing fits perfectly. It's probably actually perfectly level too. Alright, darn close to being perfectly level. So, I mean, it's probably more so my tool. Actually, I'm using the wrong side, I think. But either way, that's pretty good. Alright. So now we'll get the PCIe. Alright, let's see. I only see one photo. I'm thinking this is the before one. I mean, unless it's because I'm on my phone when I checked your link. But, alright, so. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that was the same one. So pretty. One of the coolest things about yours, I love carbon fiber, is the real carbon fiber. Yeah, no, that's really cool actually. The way you routed it, I don't blame you for that. The only reason I didn't do it that way is because I wanted it to be kind of like parallel to the other one, and it kind of always bugged me. So let's see if that shows up on stream. So see how there's that kind of like S wave? That it's always a pain, but if you push it out a little, it'll kind of straighten out. But it's hard to be perfect, I guess. But the carbon fiber bracket, I mean, and I got a carbon fiber knife handle and what else? I have a few carbon. My frames are carbon fiber, or the legs on my glasses are carbon fiber. This cell phone case is, well, it's not real carbon. It's aramid fiber or whatever it is. I'm a sucker for it. All right. Anyways, so we're tethered. We're gonna just plug in these 8 pins. I'm gonna share a story about power supplies. Um, I was watching Kerry Holzman's video yesterday, and he was talking about a bad experience with FSP power supplies. And it's important to know who made your power supply, because personally I've had bad luck with FSP also. It's Kerry Holzman's last stream. It was a live build or something from yesterday. And he was describing how something went wrong with a brand new FSP power supply, and I've actually had that happen before. I've never purchased outright an FSP, but EVGA started using FSP, and that's where I've encountered FSP through EVGA, and I've had issues. The G6 is made by Seasonic. The G5, I believe it's the G5, is made by FSP. Where I had some major issues were on the P Plus, which is an FSP power supply, where one of them even caught fire. It's one of those things, it was a overloaded power supply where it was a 1600 watt power supply. It wasn't overloaded. It was a 1600 watt power supply that was using 1500 watts at load. That should be well within its capabilities, but you know, having one pop and catch fire when it's starting up is kind of dangerous. So when I choose a power supply, I'm not just shopping EVGA or Corsair or whatever. I'm trying to find out who actually made it for them. Like I could sell a laptop as a Remus computer laptop, but somebody made it, so that would have been Clevo. When I resell electronics, I wanted to find out. Actually, I was on the search to find out who distributed Tongfeng, and Electronics is their distributor in the U.S. And but I didn't just shop Asus or Electronics or whatnot. I was shopping the actual OEM or the ODM designer of the product, and that's how I really kind of shop my components. For example, RAM. It's hard to get around Hynix modules. Most people are using Hynix, but it's good to know if you have Hynix RAM or Micron or Samsung. But that's only a part of the equation when you're looking for RAM reliability. Some of that is just out of our hands. Hynix makes great RAM modules, so it comes down to the manufacturer RAM, like G-Skill, Corsair, whatnot. They're making the PCBs that those modules sit on, and that's equally important for stability and reliability. So I mean, just going off topic, all that to say, try to research your parts before you buy them if you're really serious about overclocking or stability or whatnot. This one's a little tighter than I wanted it to be. Alright. I used to hate these flat, like ribbon style cables, and then maybe I don't know, 2 years ago, it just grew on me. I don't know why, but just something changed, probably because I'm getting older, and now I really enjoy routing them. So these are gonna go push through the chassis. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it, but man, these 12th gen Intels are really, really good. They're just a little bit of a pain sometimes to mitigate heat, but that's my problem, not yours. I'm gonna cut one of these zip ties because it's a little tighter than I wanted it to be. Could always add another one in if I need it. I should probably won't even add another one. Yeah, that'd be good with the 3 that are already on there. So now let's get this buttoned up. So again, just always trying to get the cables, zip tie cables, or zip ties always going the right direction. Okay, that should do it. These I'm going to keep loose. They're just guides, so they're not really holding anything. And you know, we're not holding it in place to the back plate, for example. Just trying to prevent these from looking like spaghetti. So that's probably all we'll need. Sometimes I add a third one. Okay. We're getting to that point where we're gonna start cutting zip ties. Everything looks pretty good here. So let's get the power supply installed. Oh, thank goodness. I'm glad it's not gonna be an RGB one. You'll be jealous though, man. Like the I don't know, you know, it's the i9 kicks butt, but man, the i7 isn't far behind it. But anyways, like even an i5 is really fast this generation. So where's our power supply? I'm actually impressed this Plantronics headset's holding up. Battery hasn't run out yet. Alright. So now we're just gonna start plugging things in. Oh, one more thing. We need to get a SATA. I like to have one of these in there, so in case the owner loses the box of accessories, they're not SOL. Being this is a modular power supply, all of the wires plug into the power supply. So if a power supply ever fails, you get the same exact one, and you're good to go. Just remove you would basically just remove all these connectors, which are the wires I laid out, and you could just pop a new one in. I like to do that outside of the case, so I'll slide it in. Be careful for all the wires there that are in there already. I have to kneel on this one. That's why I like that mat I have. Let's get, this is the fun part. Add a little bit of light. I'm doing the 24 pin first. That's the furthest one back there. And then we'll do the CPU ones, the EPS, which are the two up here. All of this preparation and nice cable management just so this part of it will look nice and tidy. Okay, so now we'll do our video card. Alright, now let's slide it in. Gotta be mindful with the front audio jack cable, and then sometimes it'll catch the grommet that's up here when you're sliding it in, so you just gotta watch that. Okay. I'm not sure how much of this will show up, but we're gonna tidy this up right now, get everything looking all nice and pretty. Now we could start cranking down some of these last zip ties. Add one more here. It's nice having the ability to move them around, like the EPS one in particular. And that's why I usually add that last zip tie after everything's plugged in. Okay. Get a nice radius. So once I cut these, I'm gonna then rotate them so it doesn't hit the back chassis cover. Actually, this one could have been a little tighter. Alrighty. That looks nice and pretty. So now we're gonna tighten up, get the power supply secured. So this could go only one of two ways. So I was just making sure we got that in correctly. And what we'll do here is we'll start the screws, but we won't crank it down all the way just yet. I'll get them nice and snug, but loose. So I am kind of, if I go too far, I'll back off. So here it stops spinning, just back off. So I want it to move around so I could line up the thumb screws to the chassis. And I'll tighten that down and then go back to the power supply. Yep, that's coming out. Alright, eco mode, I'll leave that off. This is pretty quiet on. It feels like a super quiet work environment. You can flip that off or on, and eco mode will just let the fan operate passively until a certain amount of power draw is applied. Oh, well, congrats, Mini Plays. I'm glad you're able to find that shorted wire. I've actually had that happen once before I was building computers professionally. Like in the early days, a lot of these chassis had sharp edges, and I had a computer that I had built for a few months start shutting down randomly. Ended up being a shorted wire. Thanks for stopping by, Brian. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the system. It'll be entering stress testing in probably about 30 minutes. Be probably concluding the stream in a few. So power supply's in. Basically, we'll just put this cover plate back in, which I might need to untether to get. We have one more fan to install at the top of the chassis. And that would be a wrap for this one. So with this series of video cards, I would say anything over a 3060, it's a good idea to have a top fan to help exhaust out. Oh man. Dang, Aaron. Yeah, no, I mean, shorts happen. Okay, where's that fan? Why, it would be over here, hopefully. Alright, I was able to reach it without untethering. So I need to get comfortable with the desk this way. Usually, everything would be right behind me and I would be grabbing parts this way. But with this back here, I don't know, maybe I could move the desk over more for future streams so I could work a little more like I'm used to. The goal for me to start streaming more regularly, it'd be great to do like 1 a week or 2 a month. I just need to make it something that's easy to duplicate, easy to like just, yeah, I got time for stream, let's do it. So I like showing people what I do. It's good for, you know, clients like to see their systems built, but you know, potential future clients, you know, I want them to see the level of detail that I put into these things. it's like, I mean, for me, this is exactly like blueprinting an engine. So the process of blueprinting an engine, something you do like on a race car or something you're going to drive hard, you're checking to make sure all your tolerances and your clearance, all your clearances are within spec. You know, last time I did an engine, I had to use like plastic gauge on the bearings and such. I didn't have the measuring tools needed to do it otherwise, but you check all kinds of measurements just to make sure you'll have an engine that makes as much power as it can and does it most reliably. Same thing with the computers I build. It may not add up to necessarily more performance, but hopefully reliability and ease of service and maintenance and upgrades in the future. So yeah, that'll be perfect length. Now I'm just gonna get that bracket that's inside the box here. Is it in the box? Yeah. All right. Do you regret selling that car, Aaron? I know you mentioned it a lot. Like, it seems like it was a special car to you. Alrighty, so what we'll do now is before I slide this in, I'm gonna plug it in first. This is one nice thing for sure about this open chassis kind of way of doing things is that you have the luxury of this open. My thing to fractal design would be, instead of doing this, just have a bar maybe that's part of the chassis, and and then maybe either, honestly, I think Sliger does it really well, where it's just a little bracket that'll sit up there. So if you're not going to use fans, it's completely open, and if you are going to use a fan, your fan will just bolt onto that part of the chassis. Or even like, so here's what I would do. Let's say this part would be part of the chassis. All of this would be open, because as it is, this thing is gonna flex anyways. And I would ditch the idea to have 140s, because I mean, I can't fit a 140 in here with the EPS cables and stuff. And just kind of make it more simple up there. I don't know. I'm not a chassis engineer, so I'm sure they have reasons for doing it this way. I tell Colin at Sliger all the time, like, look, Colin, you're the chassis genius. I'm just good at complaining about it in hopes that it helps you make something super awesome. So I've been waiting for my prototype, Colin. I want my chassis made. Man, Aaron, some of that I resonate with. Like, I mean, now that I have the money to really kind of do what I want to my Mustang, instead of putting it into the Mustang, I'm putting it into, the travel trailer, so I could build memories with the family rather than dumping it into the Mustang, and my kids can't enjoy it because it smells like gasoline, and they're still in car seats, and it's just in its current state, it's a little bit of a burden. But every time I fire it up and go for a drive around the block, it's like it's all smiles. But right now, the key switch went out, so it's constant key on, and it killed the battery. Battery has like 0 volts, completely dead. I don't want to rekey it because that's the original ignition, so I kind of want to find someone that could actually repair original ignition switches. That, or I'm just going to convert it to push start, since, you know, they're super easy to steal anyways. Oh, and this is the one thing I hate about black screwdrivers. Like, it blends in and I'm like, where's my screwdriver? For the longest I would use my red Matco one, but I learned to use GI, what are they? They're Japanese industrial something or other spec, but this type of Phillips fits every computer Chinese manufactured item perfectly. Whereas our actual American Phillips head, number 2, will have like play. This is like a $15–20 screwdriver, and these are pretty good where it's not too bad, but this has like 0 movement. You get over to these screws, there's just a little bit of play, and then you get the Japanese spec one, and it's like solid. There's 0 movement. I'm like, man, I just barely found out about these. Through Kerry Holzman, actually. He was saying how I found out about them maybe 2 years ago when he was talking about them. Anyways, I digress. I wouldn't be surprised if NZXT does an RGB screwdriver. I think they toyed around with something on April Fool's about something weird. I think it was RGB toilet paper. Alright, so we're done. We're gonna put the panels on. I'm gonna do full-on stress testing. First things first, RAM. I've had an increase in dead on arrival RAM since COVID, where it's not like hard dead, it's errors out. So aside from the RAM test software I use, I purchased a license of MemTest 86 and I use MemTest. Then I'll stress test the CPU, the GPU, the complete system altogether, and then I'll even do the RAM test that I usually did before, just as an icing on the cake. So RAM gets hit twice, specifically, but that's it. Eventually it'll get the REMISC sticker. Oh, actually this has no window, so this one won't get a REMISC sticker here. I'll end up putting it on the back. I try to be discreet with my systems. I should probably brand them more, because I mean, Michael Graves, they did a nice VR walkthrough of their office and all you see is Fractal rather than REMISC. But I'll just see if there's any questions. I don't even know. I might just be talking to you, Aaron. There may be no one else in here, but let's see. Oh, 7 people. That's cool. Hello, all of you. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's something you liked, it'd be nice, you know, chime in. Otherwise, you could just hang out and listen. I'll get those panels put on before I end the stream. Yeah, I have them. It's Fractal Design changed the they changed the logo. So these were made specifically to the right dimension. Where's the camera? For the Fractal original Meshify. And then they changed it. They cut like a corner off, and I didn't want to have to remake them. These are, expensive. I think I needed to spend like $300 to have the batch of these made, and I still have a bunch of these. So that's why you'll see these right here when I have a windowed panel. These I really like, the small ones. I'm more inclined to put these maybe near the IO, but I don't know. I guess sometimes I don't know, want it to be clean and simple. Because, I mean, the word of mouth is what matters. But I wish they had Remis up front at Michael Graves, that's for sure. The Ravos or Theravos. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll be able to do at least one a week. You know, I don't know. This was my first stream since like 2019, so I've invested a little bit on the GoPro in order to commit to it. So we'll see what happens. All right, Aaron. Enjoy your evening, man. I'm about wrapping up anyway, so thanks for hanging out. So now we're just gonna put the panels on. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Define 7, the air filter is actually in the side vents. I leave these on for customer builds, but for my own, I actually remove them. That way you get better airflow. They just slide right on, in and out. I'm a big proponent of no filters. I don't really like case filters. Because look, if you don't clean them, they're gonna get clogged and kill your airflow anyways. So no matter what, you need to be cleaning out your computer, whether it has filters or not. So it's just, it's hard to steer a big ship and everyone's used to filters. So they kinda, I don't know. It's just, it is what it is. Slagger cases which I love, they don't have filters on them and it doesn't bother me one bit. And when I sell one of those, I just tell them exactly what I told you guys. It's like, hey, you know what? You need to be cleaning out your filters. Whether there's filters or not, you need to be blowing your computer out. The filters are not there to prevent you from cleaning your computer out. They're just there from keeping it off your hardware. At this point, I'm not going to tether to my ESD mat because I'm not touching the actual components, I'm touching the frame, just like anyone that's handling their own computer when it's built. Alright, so we're switching to the vented panel. Default configuration has the solid panel. And then anything over an RTX 3060 really should have the vented one with at least one exhaust up the top and one in the back. If you really want to nerd out, I had good results with actually, your power supply comes with like this black foam. Just rip off the edges. I'm just doing it kind of quick and sloppy, and then you could use it to, you'll use screws to hold it in place, like if this was a case fan, and it'll block off airflow here to help divert it to your exhaust fans and across the system rather than having it escape out here before it could do anything. This actually it's technically a margin of error, but I had like a 2°C difference, if I remember correctly. It was borderline like margin of error, but it's free because it comes with your power supply, and but the reason I don't do it is just liability. I don't want it to come loose in shipping or whatnot, and the 2 degrees, I just need to do more testing really. Right now I'm more focused on the contact frame on the Intels. With the next generation of hardware that's coming out, all the TDP limits increasing, we're gonna have a lot hotter components. That may be a standard thing I do on every build I do. So it's just kind of like experimenting and just playing around with computers. Well, thanks, man. So is that Mimathan? Sorry for butchering it up, but thanks for the comment. Hope you're enjoying the laptops. Curious which account. You don't have to type it in case there's privacy reasons. I'm curious what account that is. Alright, let's get those side panels on and this bad boy will be ready for testing. Which happens just behind the cameras that you guys don't see. I'll pan over to it right now if you like. It's a little messy because I was rushing to get the stream set up. Okay, that looks like that's everything. So now, basically all the extra boxes, I try to condense everything to all the retail packages will eventually make their way to fit inside the box that the chassis was in. Because when I ship these, I use a double walled boxes because FedEx and UPS, you know, their drivers are working hard and they're, you know, actually it's probably more at the warehouse level. They don't show packages love like they should. So it's messy right now. This is my test bench we're using to test the contact frame. Some spare parts for, you know, my own internal use. This is the laptop. I mentioned, I believe, beginning of stream where it had a potentially bad Seagate NVMe drive, about a week old laptop. So this desktop will sit right here to get stress tested. BIOS update is the first thing I do. Then I'll install Windows and then go back to testing RAM with memtest. Sometimes I'll do memtest first. Depends on my mood. This is actually the spec sheet for this build, the invoice. So that would be it. Then you could kind of see there's a KVM right there, and my monitor that the stream PC is actually down on the floor. Down there. Let's see, this tripod's all janky. It's just stuff I have lying around. Oh, hey, Mike. Thanks for mentioning that. Hopefully I could do more of these. I enjoy the streams. They're fun. Just sometimes it's too hectic where I'm trying to knock out systems. Every system I build looks just like this, so it takes some time to, you gotta put your head down and grind sometimes. But you know, when there's time for streams, I should do it. It's good. It's good for people to see what their, you know, the build process looks like. But hey everyone, I hope you enjoy your weekend, and thanks for tuning in. Until next time.